Welcome back, traders and investors, to Benzinga's Pre-Market Prep, brought to you by MarketFi. I'm your co-host, Joel Alconin, along with Dennis Dick, and we have Paul LaMonica on the line. He's a digital correspondent at CNN Money. Paul, thanks for joining us. How you doing this morning?
I'm good, thanks. How you guys doing?
We're doing good here, recovering from the weekend, busy Father's Day weekends. But boy, I want to start out with Greece here, and you have an important job over there at CNN Money, being the digital correspondent. Are you up in the middle of the night following this stuff, or do you follow it on your phone, or how do you
Yeah,
do it?
I'm
You got a
I'm
lot of responsibility there.
yeah, I'm following it obviously, keeping a close eye on things. We have a great team in London that covers this more closely. So it's really nice to have our European bureau all over the Greece story, and based on what they've been reporting now, it does seem that there's hope of a last minute deal. Whether or not it happens still remains to be seen. We've been here, I don't know how many times before. I mean, we've been talking about Greece,
Years.
obviously, in the markets for several years now. Exactly. I mean, it was, remember the flash crash? I mean, before people knew what was going on, some people were
It was
saying,
the
oh, it might be
Greece.
the Greece situation, and that was 5 years ago.
Yeah, which is crazy. And now we're talking about kicking the can down the road here again. Are we just going to kick the can down the road here forever?
You can't do it forever, but it might happen at least one more time. We'll just have to wait and
One
see. I
more
think
time.
people realize that every time you get a bit of complacency and people say it's priced in, then you get a bit of a last minute panic and cooler heads prevail, and bare minimum they kick the can down the road, and we'll have to just see if there can be a final solution here. They really need to do something to just end this already. I mean, enough's enough.
Yeah, enough is with Greece. We seem like we're talking about it every day too. Let's talk a different stock. Let's talk these healthcare providers here, because some of these health insurers here have really been catching a bid lately. Obviously, off of rumors. We had Cigna rumored there just last week that Anthem was going to make a bid for it. Now we're getting confirmation that they actually did make a bid of $184 for Cigna here, and actually they rejected that bid. Now we've got CI still trading up $168 here on that rejected bid. What are your thoughts in this sector here? We're going to get some consolidation here eventually, because Humana's in play, CI's in play. There's a bidder potential out
Everyone,
there.
yeah, everyone really seems to be in play. It's going to be an
Yeah,
interesting game of musical chairs because you've got five major companies. If you have two deals taking place, that
who's left out?
means five companies go to three, but there's going to be one insurer that'll be left out. And clearly, people aren't betting that Cigna is going to be left out. I mean, with the stock still up despite the rejection of the Anthem deal, you'd have to think that people either expect Anthem and Cigna to finally do a real deal, that Cigna, is just kind of posturing for a higher price, or that someone else swoops in. As you mentioned, Humana is probably a target as opposed to someone that would do the acquisitions, but I think Aetna and United Health definitely have to be considered potential acquirers as well.
Paul, why now? I mean, why now? Is this we have had mergers in other sectors. Is there something that's going on? I mean, I know there's some big court decisions coming up regarding Obamacare and whatnot. I mean, what's
Yeah, I
what's the
think
sort of, that's it?
I think
Okay.
that's the key thing. I think the because of the Affordable Care Act, it really does seem to be putting pressure on these companies, which have done extremely well under Obamacare, to merge to try and just have even greater leverage and negotiating power. We're going to possibly see a very key ruling from the Supreme Court, maybe today, if not today, definitely before the end of the month, that will really dictate what happens to Obamacare. And I think a merger before that decision, or merger announcements while that's all going on, will set these companies up for whatever scenario unfolds, whether or not it's a continuation of the ACA, the status quo, or a real dissolution of that. But then you do have also, I think, with interest rates being still very low and the stock market doing extremely well, there are companies throughout many industries that are looking to merge right now, and they kind of feel that, who knows how much longer this environment is going to last. So strike now before things change.
So it's more taking advantage of low interest rates here, maybe.
Definitely, and clearly, I mean, we are not seeing just healthcare as an industry that's going through consolidation. You're seeing a lot of deals taking place, in a variety of sectors right now.
So, let's talk about the airlines here. Barron's was pretty bullish over the weekend here on the airlines. And what are your thoughts here? Obviously, there's been some significant sell-offs there over capacity issues. Oil's had a little bit of a rally over the course of the last 4 or 5 months here. What are your thoughts here on the airlines as obviously Barron's is bullish here over the weekend?
Yeah, airline stocks have done so well over the past few years. You can understand why some people had been skittish earlier this year, particularly what was going on, with the recent run-up in oil after it plunged to, the lows that it had at the beginning of the year. I think there are still lingering fears, as you mentioned, about, will the companies take, get complacent because of all the good times they've had recently and add on too much capacity, and will we wind up having more of those fare wars that we've had in the past that are admittedly great news for consumers but terrible news for investors? I think so far, to be fair, it does appear that the management teams of the airlines now are more rational. They are more grown up. They're not chasing seats for the sake of just putting people on airplanes, regardless of what the price is. So I think there's definitely more rational behavior, and that does bode well for many of the large companies in the business: Southwest, American, Delta, obviously, and others.
Bree, who was the guest that we had on that said the airline stocks were like hotels?
Hedge fund hotels.
Head,
That
hedge
was Frank Zarilla.
Yeah, Frank Zarilla, and that's what you may have had in this, Paul. I mean, all the hedge funds and the big traders on the same side of the trade here, and that's what this chart just looks out. It looks like they're just racing each other to get out here. I'm looking at American Airlines here, some support around the $40 area. I mean, as
Hmm.
long as the economy starts, continues. I mean, it's not exactly humming along here, but I don't know. We'll have to see if these stocks can hold in. I don't like chasing it right after the Barron's play, but we'll see what happens. Want to get your take on a new IPO here, and I think Ace faded me on it. I was being bearish the Fitbit, and so he used the contra-joule indicator, made some good, made some good. No, he lets me know. I'm glad, Ace. I'm glad you can make money on my back.
Ace will
So,
call you out.
yeah, he will. And so, they have the IPO here, and the other interesting thing is Barron's once again. The stock just IPO'd, and they're already saying that it could be a target for Microsoft and Samsung. I mean, my question to you is, where does this stand in comparison to the Apple Watch? Have you tried the Apple Watch? Have you tried Fitbit, or do you just not worry about those, health devices you wear on your wrist?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I think that the reason why people are so excited about Fitbit, I mean, one of the things is they are growing very rapidly, and it's both revenue and profit. So it's nice when you have a startup tech that is profitable. So that definitely helps. This is going to be a very volatile stock. It's probably going to be a lot like GoPro, which did extremely well for a long period of time. Last year after its IPO, then it started to cool off a bit, but it's still well above its offering price. I think that Fitbit, there will continue to be questions about whether or not the Apple Watch could be a Fitbit killer, but I think there is still potentially room for devices like Fitbit that are more specific and focused, that you don't need to have the Apple Watch do every single thing imaginable. And, to bring up GoPro again, I mean, GoPro in many respects people thought and continue to think it's a bit of a one-trick pony, but it's so well regarded. It is almost a bit like a cult stock, and you're starting to get that maybe with Fitbit. You see some of the celebrities wearing it. President Obama's been spotted wearing them. So the valuation's insane, don't get me wrong, but I don't know if they're necessarily in trouble because of the Apple Watch. And they could be a takeover target. There are going to be companies that want to get more into this business. Microsoft and Samsung, not 100% sure Samsung would do it, but I could see someone making a play potentially.
Are they a one-trick pony, Fitbit?
It might be. I mean, as you point out, everyone's talking about the competition from the Apple Watch, and the Apple Watch is obviously a device that does a lot more than just track health. So I think that it is valid to say that until Fitbit comes out with other products that go beyond fitness, which they're probably not, since Fit is their ticker symbol and Fit's in their name, that you could argue that is this company too narrowly focused? But the fitness business is a very big one. People just look at what's going on with organic food. I mean, people definitely are trying, at least on the surface, to live more healthier lifestyles, and that bodes well for Fitbit, I think.
Just want to get your take on another stock. You mentioned GoPro here. I just want to
Hmm.
get your take on Ambarella. Took a little haircut in some puts on last week, and that
Hmm.
was before Citron came out here. And I just want to get your take, just first of all, on the stock, just a historic run here, and then also your takes on companies like Citron. I mean, to me, they're probably out there short in stock for the last 2, 3, 4, 5 days. They know they have influence on the street, and they knock it down. Just wanted to get your take on that.
You know, Citron does a very good job. They are widely respected, and they obviously move stocks. And I think that it makes sense that people would be a little wary of Ambarella after that because it's had such a phenomenal run. People talk about it as a bit of a GoPro proxy because of the chips they make that go into GoPro, and they're also potentially drone play as well because they've got stuff that goes into quadcopters. The one thing that you just have to keep in mind, I mean, I think anytime people buy and sell based on one research report, you are setting yourself up for potential disappointment because anyone can get something wrong, even an outfit as good as Citron is. I remember last year that they had a report about SodaStream and how it was inevitable that someone was going to take them over, and that still hasn't happened yet. So they were definitely wrong on SodaStream, but that doesn't mean that Citron's a bad company by any stretch. It just means that no one's perfect. So take any run report with many grains of salt, and then do your own research too.
Paul, just before we let you go here, we got about another minute. What are your thoughts on this overall market? Because obviously we bounced around a lot here off of Greece headlines, different concerns. But really, when you look at the last 6 months, this S&P, we've really just kind of been in a trading range. We seem to get up 2120 area, we find resistance. We get down to 2060, 2070, we find support. We've really been stuck here. What's going to take us out of here, and what are your overall thoughts on the market?
It is getting harder and harder, obviously, to find value in a market like this, and I think you do have to wonder if there is a catalyst that gets things going higher. Maybe it's better news out of Europe if Greece finally becomes something that goes into the rearview mirror. Perhaps it's an acceleration of growth in China. I know people are worried about that, but I think at the end of the day, it really does come down to the U.S. too. If the Fed is if we can believe that the Fed is going to raise rates gradually and not do it too quickly, and they're going to be small moves, and they don't jeopardize this still very slow economic recovery, then that could be good news. I think people are waiting to see what earnings are going to be like for many different sectors once the Fed finally raises rates, and if they don't kill the consumer and they don't hurt corporate profit growth, then I think that in of itself might be a catalyst that the Fed isn't going to tighten so aggressively that it leads us into another economic downturn.
We've been on the line with Paul LaMonica, digital correspondent at CNN Money. Paul writes daily about the markets, the economy, and technology, and also appears in the Daily Buzz video segment. Paul, always great having you on. Thanks for your input. We'll speak to you again soon.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Paul.